Welcome back to Be the Change podcast. We're here with Joanna Brown today, and we're discussing all sorts of comfortable, uncomfortable topics. But I think one of the topics I've started to learn more about is definitely mindset and the growth mindset. So tell us a little bit about growth mindset, starting a business, and what that looks like for you as an entrepreneur and business person.
Sure. So I had only really, I guess, thought of it maybe as a growth mindset. I think I would have thought of it as being resilient before. But I think when I think about a growth mindset, it's just believing you could achieve an outcome. And even when you get thrown a whole bunch of stuff that might make you think you cannot achieve that outcome, that you can keep going in a kind of meaningful way. And so I think there is no better spot in the world to have this mindset than in the tech world because, there's lots of stats around how businesses can fail and things like that. But I think it's almost at rapid scale when you go to tech and there's a real you've got two options when you're building a company in tech. You're either going to try to get some VC backed money, get a cash infusion to help you grow, or you're going to bootstrap it and you're going to try to get some early customers and revenue and then go a bit more steady pace in terms of how you grow it out. But at both of those things, there's a real cliff in which you have to build your product, but then you have to get it in the hands of customers. And when you're getting it in the hands of customers, that can be X amount of time. They are going to find stuff. You are going to have to fix stuff. There's always stuff you're going to have to fix in that product. But getting that early traction and then getting paying customers, maybe they're paying customers, maybe they're not. There's a real cliff there where money runs out and there's pressure to adapt your strategy and figure it out. So I think that any entrepreneur in the tech space has to really have a growth mindset because it's really kind of endless obstacles, I guess you could see it as. But you just have to be smart about how you're approaching things. So I don't think there's a founder I've worked with that probably hasn't been overwhelmed at times. I myself, I'm not building a product yet, but even just I'm a solo consultant right now that's going to build out my company. But even there'll be obstacles no matter what you're kind of doing, and so I think that you see that you can make an impact, and that's a big enough belief that when you get barriers, you just figure out how to get past them, right? So I think if you have that mindset, it's really probably hard to be a more your typical 9 to 5 job. And listen, I appreciate all of it. I've done the kind of office job, and then I've done the entrepreneur side, and I have a total appreciation for both. But I think once you do a growth mindset and you believe that you can figure things out and that you can move the needle and move stuff forward, then I think it's really hard to switch out of that. And so that's why you hear of serial entrepreneurs, because even if their company fails, they might need a break. But they're coming back, and so you can believe in that. And so I think it's just resilience, right? And I think you build that resilience by having a bit of success along the way, right? It's just, I think when I look back at what for my own self has helped me have a growth mindset, it's that I can figure stuff out. I within a realm of reason, like in my ballpark, I can figure stuff out. And so that's always been something that has reinforced that, okay, try something new. It's a bit risky, but you'll figure it out or you won't. And then you'll pivot and you'll do something different. And so I think people with a growth mindset have a really fluid view on how they're going to get to their end goal.
So having a growth mindset is not an easy thing to. I would suggest it's probably one of those things that you build and rebuild and shift. And for me, it's who do I surround myself by? Like who's the folks in the business community? Who are your sounding boards? Who are your kind of allies, accomplices? All those mentors, like all those words that we use, sponsors. So throughout your livelihood and career, have there been moments of like that sponsorship and the one that we just talked about a few minutes ago. You said that your dad was you hear the voice of like so like the voice of reason, I guess, or the voice of you can do it, the cheerleader or whatever you want to call that. So are there folks that you kind of go to that you kind of they're your sounding board. They help you through things, not to name their names, but like how do you do that, or how have you built that around you?
Yeah, and I think I've been really, really lucky, I think, in that regard. I've always had like a really my family's always been like a big cheerleader, so I probably had some like undue confidence early because we're not really having done too much at the time. Uh, but so I've always had a really good kind of backing that way. I've also had really supportive friends, but my friend base honestly is a lot through sports. So we played a lot of sports together. I respect them so much. And then also for working with folks. So I have what I call my work wives, and then I have my real wife, and between the three of them, I cannot get away with anything. So, but I trust them because they don't just say, you can do it, you can do it. I trust them because if I am doing something that is maybe off center or maybe not really in line with what they know I really care about, like they'll call me on it. Or if I do something, like they're the first to call me on my BS, and they're also the first to push me forward. And so I felt really lucky that way. But I think, to me, it's not about opinion shopping because you can, reach out to lots of people, but it's got to be people that you trust. Like you said, people that, have, good interests, or people who are experts in their field, or people that you respect professionally that you want their opinion, because at times definitely you'll question yourself and you'll kind of wonder, was this in line? Was this out of line? Was that the right priority? And I respect the people who tell me the truth, and are very authentic. Like, I mean, one of my things I think I need the very most of my life is are grounded, authentic people. And it's part of why I mentioned I live in this province, because I think we've got really, really solid folks who live here with a good head on their shoulders. And so for me, that's kind of where I go. But definitely, there's been so many times that I've, questioned myself, can I do this? Can I do whatever? And it's not just, yes, you can do it, and now go jump off that cliff into like, a really bad situation where you can't financially support yourself, where you can't, help achieve the objective you set out. So I think it's really helpful to have very honest people in your life and what that looks like.
Absolutely. I mean, like we all need our North Star. We all need our groundings. And yeah, you mentioned work wives and the previous within healthcare. I had a few of those that kind of kept me grounded, kind of kept me where I needed to be in that balance and all those things. Is just like, am I going at this the right way? Is that like, is my thought process, like checking like some of the kind of those check-ins. In the business world, it looks a little bit different, and certainly like how we ground ourselves and who we surround ourselves by. Is the saying we are those five that we surround ourselves by. Like when you look at their brilliance and what they're doing in life and being our cheerleaders and all those sorts of things. And it's interesting because before we started, you and I talked a lot about travel. We talked about imposter syndrome, and had noted that a lot of people and women and gender diverse folks want to talk about imposter syndrome. And I think we all feel it, to be honest, whether we talk about it or we don't talk about it. We feel like, can I do this thing? Because it's hard. No one ever went into business, saying it's not going to be hard or it's not going to be work. It's called work for a reason. It's hard. I always say that I don't want a job because this is not my job, right? This is not my job. It's something I'm passionate about. And I think when your passion shows through, like yours does, for the work that you're doing and the clients that you're working with, I think people see that authenticity. So let's talk a little bit about, being authentic, in a way of, what that looks like for you as a person and as an entrepreneur, business person, and, kind of where that imposter syndrome, where that comes into, and how you have the tenacity and to get over it and to move beyond some of those barriers.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, I think we're when I kind of look back at what has been a bit of an underlying piece, imposter syndrome's there, but also like we're all sick to death of talking about imposter syndrome. Like we like you Google imposter syndrome, endless, right? Endless discussion. I agree. There's a lot there, but maybe, hindsight is 2020. If you could, I think we can probably be a little bit nicer to ourselves along the way. Like that's a bit of an underlying thing. And, personally and professionally, be a little bit nicer to yourself. Because if you're trying anything new, or you're just trying to enjoy your life in a bit of a steadier job, like that's great. Like whatever you want to do, I'm a big fan. But I think when you have that growth mindset, you'll probably try a few more different things that you could fail on or not fit. Like you probably have a bit of a wider, you can probably fall on your face aspect to
Yeah.
it. And so when that's out there, you do start to question because there's always something else you can do. And so if you look at like tech sales, like I'm not the founder of a tech product company. But I'm sure if you were that person, you could look around and you could find, okay, I'm the founder, but I've only been doing it for a year. Okay, well, I'm a founder of a successful exit, but oh, there's a double founder of a successful exit, or oh, there's a 3x founder of a successful exit. And like to use that example, there's just if you're looking for proof points on where you sit in your landscape, there are endless ways you can talk yourself out of something. So so I do think it's good to feel confident, but I will say like confident because you've got a good track record of delivering, and so it's not enough to just say like I'm awesome at what I do and here I come. You need to really like your opinion needs to be based on a few proof points along the way, right? And so like, hey, I did a really good job here. I feel good about that. I should feel good about that. Forget your surroundings for a minute and the landscape in which you could compare yourself. Okay, great. I did another good thing. You know what? That helped them. I feel good about myself. That was a learning moment for me. And here's something that maybe I wouldn't do again, or here's something that was hard for me and that, maybe that'll help shape the next thing I do. And so I'm trying to stay in that mode as much as possible but that, I've been like working in tech for 15 years and I felt that, like don't say the word imposter syndrome. I felt that at different times. But when I look back, I just wish I'd been like a little bit nicer to myself at different times. Because when you look back and hindsight's 2020, you're like, no, that was really great, and at times it's not just in your head, like at times, depending on who you're working with and what partners you're working with and things like that, like you might find people who are not encouraging of that. And so that might be kind of compounding what that feels like, right? I was really lucky early on that you talked about sponsorship earlier. I did not know sponsorship. I knew mentorship, but I did not know sponsorship. And so I had a boss really early on who let me do way too much stuff now that I look back on it. Like I felt like I think a boss from the day I was started working because he let me do way too much stuff. And he didn't ever tell me that I actually wasn't qualified to do that. And so that was really great. And I that was kind of like how I got to start exploring like, can I do this? What that's of interest? What does that look like? So I have a lot of I have so much respect for him. And if I don't think I've ever called myself his mentor, and I think he would die if I said I was. But 10 years of work experience, and I learned a lot, and I have a lot of respect. So I think that kind of like sponsorship early on, even though I didn't know it was that, had a huge impact on everything else that I did.
Absolutely. I think that a lot of us have, and in the diversity and inclusion space, sometimes our white male allies are, they feel left out and they're not part of their conversation. But what I'll say is that it's so important for, male allies to be a part of this conversation, and to, just have a bit of an understanding of the roles that they're playing, and to be able to be mentors and allies to us and sponsors and all these great words that we use. A lot of us got to where we're to be honest, because the male voice is seen as the voice of reason. It's seen as 98% of some CEOs within Canada are males, white males. And statistics goes down for females, gender diverse, racialized, and so forth. So just looking at that, folks with disabilities, indigenous, so like, there's a part and role for all of us to play. So sometimes I get that. I had it yesterday, a conversation came up around it about as a white male, white cisgender male, like how can I help? How can I be a part of this conversation? And I think that's, you brought up a good one. Like it's just even though we may not realize it at the time that we were being mentored or there's sponsorship going on, being able to amplify people's voices, being able to, talk about people when they're not in the room in that fantastic way, being able to mentee different parts of equity deserving groups. Like there's just so many things that, people can do to be helpful, to be those allies along the way. And I think that, we all need them. We may not recognize what people have done for our careers, but I think when we look at it, when we're so many years in, we can see it, when we can see how we can amplify those voices of other folks within industries that we're working in as well. What are some thoughts on that?
Yes, definitely. And even just in general, like I think we all get busy, we all have really busy lives. The pace of work is not getting any less, right? And so the pace of work is a lot. The saturation of information and communication and how we communicate with people is increasing and only, going to increase more. And so I think that because of that, people tend to kind of stay in their lanes. And then, yes, if you work with someone, maybe you might kind of amplify their voice at times. But I think across the board, it takes so little to be a bit proactive in that and how we do that, whether it's someone that reports to you, whether it's someone that is in the same organization, whether it's a stranger on LinkedIn. It doesn't matter. Like, I think that if you once a week, which would take 10 minutes, tried to make one connection for someone or thread the needle that, hey, this person said this and hey, this would be a really interesting person for them to talk to. If you did that one time a week and everyone did that once a week, we would help people advance their careers. We would help people advance their businesses. Like I think it is the most underutilized thing that we can do as people. And so I'm always really curious, what do people do? What does that look like? And I find like I'm really often kind of threading the needle, okay, go talk to this person over here, this over here. And it takes so little to do that. It really takes like nothing out of you. It doesn't like, so I think in general, there's beyond people that are in your employment or people that are in your company. I think we can do a whole lot more in terms of how we amplify or connect people.
Absolutely. I mean, it's so easy. And literally, I think it was 5 minutes. Like, you know what I mean? Like on LinkedIn, like share something belong to a business or, hey, help support this person, or they're looking for this, it could be post of whatever it is, just amplifying what people are putting out there. It's kindness. I think like kindness matters and how we're spreading our kindness. And is not like a piece of pie that there's only 6 pieces. No, now if I give Joanna 4 pieces, there's only 2 left for me. It doesn't work that way, right? Like we all have kindness in us. And I think to be able to spread that in the communities that we're in, and even better, the communities that we're not in, just being able to see someone that we maybe don't know and just like, oh, that's a really cool concept, or that's a really cool idea. Like maybe I should share this with some clients or, in communities and conversations that we're in. I mean, like amplify people that we don't know. I mean, that's even more important, right? So that way we're spreading kindness through other diverse communities. So we're helping them with their business plans, or we're helping them with their ideas or thoughts on things.
Yeah, exactly. And there's like a handful of folks, more than a handful, but in this particular, like there's a handful of people I can think that are at every like youth-backed program, event, whatever that may be, and they really have no affiliation to any particular spot they're going, but they've had an amazing careers, like they're complete leaders in what they do. And I am always just like in awe, like, wow, there's some these guys are heavy hitters, or these folks are heavy hitters to be here, but you can almost count that they'll always be there. They'll always show up. And so I just have so much respect for folks who are doing that, right? And I think this province is really interesting in that way, and that it's more common that people will kind of extend themselves a little bit and do that. So it's really nice to see, but I also think it's so heavily underutilized. Like we can do a lot more.
That's true. I mean, like those are what I would call like we don't always celebrate our small wins, as business people or within industry. So celebrating the small wins, showing up, that's massively important within the community. Showing up when you can, helping out, volunteering, playing roles that we probably don't always play. We get to do things. We get to reinvent yourself in whatever way that is, which I think is probably the opposite of imposter syndrome. So reinventing and becoming something new, right? Taking on a new challenge or a new role.
And I joke with my friends because when I was kind of like I would say in the real like let's say year 5 to 10 or 5 to 7 somewhere in there of like working when I had some experience like I was starting to get my feet well like I could I could walk pretty good now and so then I started to get a bit of an ego actually and I was like okay and I was like I'm really feeling myself doing this. And then if you talk to me then you'd be like, oh my God, like I don't want to talk to you because that's so boring, all the business stuff you're talking about. Like I don't care that on page 18 that of that proposal that was changed and then that meant or I don't care that this demo was so awesome. Like and so I could like see like my close friends just their eyes glazing over and I was like but and then I kind of got past that and I was like and now I think I talk more about impact and things like that because now I think I really do feel comfortable in my skill set and I really do feel comfortable about where I am and what I can do. And so I find that now I really want to focus on like what are those impacts and the initiatives and you judge yourself differently when you start thinking about like what's the bigger piece like outside of your day to day and great I hope everyone feels awesome in what they're doing and building but
Yeah.
what else do you care about that's what I want to know from
Yeah,
people.
for sure. Like, a question and some things I've thought about is just like legacy. Like, what are the legacies, honestly, that we want to leave creating in our society or within our ecosystems that we're involved in? Like, what does that legacy look like? Like, what does the Joanna Brown legacy look like in Newfoundland and Labrador in our tech space, in our community? Now, that's a big one, right? Like, boom. Like, what does that look like? But it's for all of us to think about, like, what is the legacy and what is it we want to be known for? Like, what is it that we've done, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably because of having that loss a little bit earlier. Like the legacy I care about or the piece I care about is the time and the impact I got to spend with my family and my wife and my friends. And so I'm it's kind of counterintuitive. Like I actually am really like really into business and I'm really into like I love the work I do. I love working with these companies and I'm really driven. So it sounds like I'm lying, but I actually like that's what I think about because I'm like, well, did I do something that benefited my day to day that I felt good about that I got positive things from, albeit they were hard at times, and you helped some companies along the way. Awesome. If I did that and didn't get to spend any time with my family or I didn't get to be in their lives and see them, then that's a loss, right? And so I hope on when I think about more like the business side of the shop or like outside my family, I hope that helping create like I think empowering, I do a lot of work around female identifying, like helping them, empowering them, hopefully, making them feel confident about what they're doing. That's always going to be a focus. Like I'll always prioritize that kind of work. So I think I probably lean there in terms of, and then also just like on the wider side, like when it comes to, anything. I just joined the Heart and Stroke Provincial Advisory Board, and one of their main focuses is also on like how do we get data on women and research on women's heart health and what does that look like? And so even though I joined without knowing that was the cause, I think at one point someone looked at me and they were like, "This is your love language," and I was like, I was bought on before. I bought in before that. But yes, if you do have a female identifying area that you're going to focus on, yes, I'm really interested in that. And so I hope people feel empowered, and I hope they can avoid some obstacles along the way.
Absolutely. I love that. Give me a high five.
Yes.
Right? High five for all the great work you're doing and all the great work you're going to do and don't even know that you're going to do. So if amazing people want to reach out to you, find out all about Rivet, find out all about your organization, what you're doing, what you're up to, want to work with you, how can they connect in?
Sure. So you can connect with me on LinkedIn, or you can go to rivetgrowth.com. So rivetgrowth.com. Or yeah, just shoot me a note on LinkedIn and I'm always happy to chat with people.
Amazing. Anything that you want to add as we're closing off?
Thanks for doing all the work that you do in your podcast and in your work. Like, I love to see it. So, and thanks for having me.
It's been amazing. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Bye.